My mum ran away 2 weeks before I was 13, leaving me with the household duties of being a mum to my 11-year-old brother, 10 at the time, and my dad. Dad's got a new girlfriend, which obviously didn't like. Got kicked out of the family home because she moved in. And from then I went to hostels, to B&B, got in a domestic violence relationship and had to come to St John's because I was going to lose my unborn son if I didn't get out of the relationship. And not only that, I was being raided on a weekly basis by the police, so I had to get out. I was working full-time up until I was 6 months pregnant in the Home Office in London. I was travelling back and forth. Well, I left, the main reason was being pregnant, but I also left because of the stress at home and the regular beatings. I was constantly going in with black eyes and that didn't look good for anyone. So I just took my maternity leave a few months earlier and just left. I idolised the bloke, absolutely idolised him. And for him to have done all of that, when he said he loved me, I just couldn't see it. But I just had to stop all contact or I was going to lose my son, and I hadn't even had him yet. So I had to just completely forget about him, go nowhere near our joint house, not ring him, nothing. And that's the only way that I've done it, just for the fault of my son, to keep him, because he's more important than any man. Knowing that there's the security there, because of coming out of that domestic violent relationship, he threatened me no end to rip my baby out of me, to stab me. So that security was great. And not only that, knowing that they're there if I need them, because after that domestic violence, I never really had time to think because I was pregnant. When I had him, I was finding it difficult to start with, adapting to being in here with rules, adapting to having a baby and everything like that. But it is great. They are there 24/7 if you need them. For anything, day or night, you can just buzz and they'll come straight up if you've got a problem. It's great in here, I love it. If I had a bigger place, I'd stay. I wouldn't move, but I've got to go out there sometime, and I
worked offshore up until 6 months ago for a company called A&E Systems, doing anti-corrosion, normally 3 weeks at a time, 3 on, 3 off. I ended up coming to Coppers Court after coming home to my ex-partner and just finding out she's back on the drugs. And she just kicked up, went mad one night, and then when I got up in the morning, I just left with the kid. I weren't even really bothered about walking away from the material things. That's not really my concern. My concern was Demi at the time. So that was just a bit of a shock to the system, obviously, going from having everything to going to having nothing, a kid in a black sack. I went to my uncle's house, and then obviously I sorted out housing. They put me and Demi in a bed sit for a week, and then we came to Coppers Court, which is obviously St John's. No, I wouldn't have even known. I wouldn't have known. Well, I don't really think there is much. They'd have probably just left me in a guest house to rot until I found a council place or until they found me one. Whereas obviously this is a lot more secure environment to have your children in than having them in a guest house, because you've got all sorts in the guest house. They can monitor people in here better, can't they? They can see where the problems are, whereas in a guest house you've got all sorts of people in and out, and they can't monitor that, can they?
I was on the street for 11 years. When I slept on the street. Well, Christmas Day, I went to St Andrew's Hall, because they do, Christmas dinner, and then, then after that, on Boxing Day, New Year's Day, when, and New Year's night, when they came out of the pubs and that, and I slept on the streets then. And they said, well, we're arresting you. I thought, arrest me for what? He said, we had a complaint that Linda Moore, that you threatened her with a butcher knife. I said, you what? And they arrested me, and they interviewed her. I said, show her I made it up. And then, she got me in trouble. I left the flat, handed me keys in tonight. I said, look, I'm not putting up with it. I said, I'll sleep on the street. He said, what do you mean, sleep on the street? I said, I'll have to. I don't go nowhere else to go ever. it's nice to have, you know, have a roof for your head. And I said, it's better being on the street. If I get checked out here now and see on the street, I'll be gone. I'll be, you know, laying on the streets now, I'll be, you know, I'll be dead.
I used to live with my mum, and then I went to Spain for 2 weeks, and I come back, and like, obviously before I went on holiday I caused trouble with my mates and that, and my mates set someone's house on fire, and I got the blame for it, and I went to the police and everything, but then that all got dropped because some girl like got arrested for it, and she got all the thing for it, and then like my mum just said she had enough and kicked me out, so I went to stay with my auntie for a little while. Then my auntie went down to the council, and then I went into a hostel up Highview, Belstead Road. I stayed there. I was there for quite long. I was there for like a year, and then I had to keep going to the job centre now and then to sort my money out. I had to go to job centre to start my claim, start housing benefits. That's just really long to do. Like anyone that's going to get in this position don't want to be in it sort of thing. Like when I had like no one, no money, nothing, I just didn't know what to do. I was like stuck really because when my mum kicked me out to my dorky off me and that, I stopped at my mate's house, so my other mate's house. Then I went to the council and that, then went through social services. That was the hard bit. All that, like moving from mate's sofas to mate's sofas and that. Not many places are like this sort of thing really. Like help you out, give you a place to live. Obviously the rent's cheap, and like support. Not many places do that.
Well, I mean, I drank sort of, you know, maybe once a week in the pub and wake up with a headache on Monday morning, go, oh, my head. And then I wouldn't drink for another week. I suppose about 1987, I had a really good job in Oxfordshire, and I walked out, and I just started gradually drinking more, and then I became addicted to spirits, and I mean, when I worked, I was all right for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'd sort of celebrate because everyone was going, oh, you're a really good chef, well done, you know, thanks very much, you know, and then I go like, oh, I'll have a drink now. And then, because it was spirits, it would just bottle a day, you know. So I still had my flat, but I just couldn't pay the, well, I didn't pay the mortgage. So that's how I ended up losing it. And then I had nowhere to live. I just had a suitcase and my clothes I was in, because I had to sell everything else. It just takes over. So it's an escape, basically, so I don't know what I'm escaping from, but and then you end up losing everything, and you have to start all over again. I've made the first step by cutting out the alcohol, which is the main thing. Without, you know, if I drink, then I'm no good. The next step is to work without alcohol, and I mean, they've helped me so much in the past 5 years, I would say 4.5 years, to just by someone to talk to, better than any counsellors, you know, because you build up a trust with them, and so.
Just woke up one morning and thought I've had enough of this, and I ended up just supposed to be going to the dentist, and I ended up getting to this place for domestic violence. He'd put a knife up to my throat, strangled me. That's, you know, the usual really bad domestic violence. It's because of the organisations that I've been going to, like Women's Aid and the Washing Line projects, and here, that I've been able to get as strong as I am now, and where I am now. They always tell you here, I've always remembered from the time I moved in here, they always say to you, it's your time now, it's down to you. You've got to look after yourself, take time out for you, me time, and do it, you know, and they support you. Because of them that I can I've got back on my feet, and I'm, you know, moving on in life.
Basically, it started around about two and a bit years ago. It's basically to do with my compulsion to gambling. Basically, my gambling started what I thought I could control to start with, and then about a year ago I got in trouble with the law. I hold my hand up and say that I shouldn't have took the money that I took, and got myself in big and deeper in trouble. And it was a very, very difficult time for me, losing friends, losing family, losing, you know, other people around me, and obviously losing my home as well. And there was times before where I thought, you know, I could need some help, I need to cry out for help, but who do I speak to? My friends would not quite understand with the gambling. And people in authorities I thought wouldn't help as well at that point. I didn't think there was anybody there who would help me, and I would sit in my car and cry my eyes out sometimes, thinking, where do I go from here? There is nowhere to go. You know, what do I do to survive? Instead of nobody listening before, you know, I got arrested and before the problem started, suddenly there was somebody actually in the authorities listening to me, and they're not against me, they're actually on my side. I don't think I'd have been where I am now. I'd have been struggling. I'd probably been like some other people, could even been on the streets right now. I don't want to think about too much what could have happened if IHAG weren't there, but I'm glad that they are there, and I'm glad that things are looking a bit more rosy for me. With the help I'm getting, and obviously myself and my self-confidence that I've got now, I can get over them hurdles and get on to the next step. It's good.
What it was is I lived with my mum. I had lived with all different members of my family before that, but nothing worked out because I never got on with any of them. I then moved in with my mum, but at the time she was an alcoholic. So in the end, she just basically left me to squat in a flat with no electric and no food coming in. And I was just by myself though. And then I was with my partner at the time as well, but he got to his parents and asked them if I could live with them for a little while, which they said was fine. But after a couple of weeks, because they already had 4 children themselves and only a 3-bedroom house, I couldn't live there. His mum came to the council with me about Phoenix House, because that was like the only place in my age at the time. And it took a little while. I stayed with them for a couple more weeks, and then eventually they just phoned up and said, you've got a place at Phoenix House. I had a lot of bad childhood memories, and being in a place full of quite a few boys brought it all back. So I had to get it all off my chest. I had a key worker, and I had to explain what happened to me, and they supported me in that, and they helped me get all the support I needed. I then started Counselling with Connections, which was through Help with Phoenix as well, to get it all off my chest. My boyfriend moved in after a couple of months because of his family breakdown, and then I fell pregnant, so then I had to be moved on to Haven Court. Obviously, it's your job to look after your child, not theirs. They're there if you need them. If you needed a rest for half hour, they're there to have the baby for half hour in the staff room. But yeah, they let you get on with it. You had to learn, obviously, to cook because you had your own kitchen in your room. And I never knew how to cook till I got there, so I had to start getting all the recipe books out. And I learnt to cook there, learnt to be responsible, like clean up after yourself. And then, like I said, they leave you to it. If you need any help, they're there. Just go down and ask them, they'll help you straight away.
I left school when I was about 15 and had problems at home, not severe ones, but there was issues, you know. And so I moved out when I was 16, lived in various bedsits and squats, and you know, and it all seemed okay and everything. And I met my partner of the time, and both our lives were really chaotic. We both drank a lot, and we still carried on moving from different squats to different bed sits and so on, and a lot of places wouldn't have us and stuff. We got a house together, but due to our excessive drinking and drug use, the relationship broke down. I was at my sister's for a while, and then I moved into IHAG, you know, and I'd always heard about IHAG. I suppose I can't stress enough that how much IHAG were always there for me, and I knew that, you know, that I had their support and so on and so forth. So eventually we got to a stage where I could move into like a halfway house kind of thing. And it was never meant to be permanent, but it's about moving you on and just seeing how you cope and so on and so forth. I was off and on with my partner, and during the time I lived in this halfway house, my partner fell pregnant again, and my son was born, and he only lived for 8 months, and so it all started over again, you know, drinking and so on and so forth. I got in a lot of debt and stuff like that, and eventually I came back to IHAG again, and moved into another property of theirs. I'm not saying your life is mapped out at all, because clearly you can make changes to it, but I think you have to get at least to an age where you realise you can make changes to it and know that you've got support from places like IHAG and the Iceni project before it actually starts to happen. So yeah, I moved out of IHAG into the flat where I still live, and I've been there pretty much for 10 years, and that's a flat in the town. And yeah, I went through college, I got a trade as a cabinet maker, done, you know, lots of voluntary work and so on. You know, I'm working for IHAG because I've stayed in touch, and they called me when they, you know, there was somebody off sick, you know. It's been good for me. You know, my parents and my mum who brought us up, she never had, there weren't all the support in place that there is today. You know, things were different. So, yeah, it goes back to support again and help and so on and so forth, yeah.